This isn't a question of whether you believe in God or not. Let me tell you that I'm not here to preach. That's not what this is about. I am, however, here to tell you my story live and unedited on the date it happened and from the exact location that it happened at 24 years ago today. It seems like yesterday. This is a disclaimer. Parts of my story may be disturbing to some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Also, live sharing is encouraged. For God so loved the world that he truly saved a wretch like me. I'm so undeserving of God's love. I've turned my back on him time and time again in my life, yet his love for me is steadfast. Did he not leave the 99 sheep and go in search of the one? I am that one. And this is my story.
Benson, and 24 years ago I escaped from a serial killer who murdered 8 women, and I'm the only one that got away. Tonight I'm in the exact location. This is hard, but I'm gonna do it anyways. A lot of the shows you've seen told my story in different ways, but I'm gonna tell you how it happened. Today is September 27th. I met him on September 27th, 1992. I was working here in Desert Hot Springs at a crippled children's hospital. I took care of 6 girls that were physically and developmentally disabled, and I cared for them at night from 10 at night till 6 in the morning. I was only 19 years old. I had just gotten my own apartment, so I had no accessibility to my parents' cars anymore, and I had to rely on the bus. Sorry, I keep looking away, but when I reminisce about this story, I have to look away. It's hard to look at one object when I speak about this. But I thank you for tuning in. It is a little weird to be in the place, and I did not even plan on crying because I am strong. And I want to show you that you can be strong too. So like I was saying, I worked at 10 at night till 6 in the morning. And I lived about 30 minutes away from work. I went to the bus stop to catch the bus, and I didn't really know the bus schedule that well, so I went in the store and I got some candy and stuff like that for the children. And when I was in line at the store, I saw the bus go by. I panicked because I had been warned that if I didn't get to work on time, that I would be terminated. I was late a lot because of the bus. And so I went out to the bus stop, and a car pulled up a couple hours from now on this date. And it was a man, and he rolled down his window and he said, "Do you need a ride?" And my instinctual reaction was no, I don't. But then I thought about it and I thought, actually, yes, I do, or I'm going to be fired. And he started to pull away. And when he began to pull away, I automatically thought, he can't be any kind of crazy person, because why would he pull away and not come attack me or do anything like that, things that we've heard of that crazy people do. And so I said, yeah, you know what? I do. I need a ride. So I got in the car. I took a ride with him. He was nice. He was just the regular guy next door. He didn't do anything bizarre. I never thought he was bizarre. I even felt bad for prejudging him. I know a lot of you are laughing at that and laughing at the fact that I was scared of the sun bus. But the car that I got into was not the right car. He was nice. He gained my trust. He gave me a ride to work. He said a few weird things on the way. So when I said I was interested in acting, he asked if I was interested in porns. And I said no. And I called him a sicko. He didn't like that, but then he laughed it off. And then the next thing he did that was weird was the red light turned green. And he just sat there. And he looked around. And mind you, it's dark. It's about 9:50 at night, and I'm running late to work. It's really dark, and he looks around and he says the desert is so quiet and peaceful. I was young. I thought that was weird, but nothing to jump out of the car for. So he gives me a ride to work, and then he goes to drop me off, and I get out of the car, and he asks me for the phone number. I was really naive. I told him where I worked because I was proud of where I worked and because I was young and naive. But I told him everything about where I worked. I told him that I worked there alone, by myself, with 6 girls that were crippled and totally helpless, and that I left at 6 in the morning and that I rode the bus back home at 6 in the morning. So he knew where I worked. He knew the circumstances surrounding everything of where I worked. I basically told him my life story because I trusted him. Then I gave him a fake number, and then I went to work. I felt a little weird at first, so I called a friend and asked if they could pick me up in the morning, and they couldn't because their car was broken down. And I've always been an optimist, no matter what I've been through in my life. So I told myself that I was just overreacting, like I normally did. And I told myself everything is fine, and I just went along with my normal duties at the house, and I took care of the girls. And in the morning, when the next woman arrived at 6 o'clock, I got my backpack and I walked out the front door. I stopped in the driveway. Like I said, it was 6 o'clock in the morning. This would be tomorrow morning, September 28th, 1992. And I set my bag down and gathered everything and prepared to walk to the bus stop. I looked down the road towards the bus stop and I saw a car there that looks sort of similar to his car. And I thought I saw a person sitting in it. So I thought my mind is playing tricks on me. Sorry if this keeps cutting out. I hate to break out of this story, but if this cuts out, I'm gonna just pause and then go on so you're not missing anything. I know when it cuts out. I had the feeling I should walk the other way and not walk straight to the bus stop. But I wasn't scared. I was 19. My brain wasn't even fully developed. I wasn't scared. I was optimistic. I trusted everybody. So I started walking the other way, which was not a good way because it was more desolate. I started walking and I could hear wheels pulling up alongside of me. I could hear the gravel underneath the wheels just turning over the dirt. And I didn't even look because I knew it was him. You're probably wondering if I felt fear at that point, and the answer is no, I didn't feel fear. What I felt was, how am I going to tell this guy to just leave me alone? I'm not interested. If he offered me a ride home, I would take a ride home, because at that age you think impulsively. You don't think of the consequences. At that age, I had never heard any stories of serial killers. I grew up with no electricity, running water, television, nothing like that. I was extra naive, mind you. So he stopped. And he was nice. He talked to me through the window. And he said, "So do you want to go to breakfast?" And I laughed. And I said, "No, I told you no, that I don't want to go to breakfast." And he said, "Well, then how about I give you a ride home?" And I thought, okay, I'll take a ride home. That sounds fine. So I got in the car. When I got in the car, I wasn't scared. All that was going through my mind was what I was going to say to him to try to blow him off, and easy, to let him know that I didn't want to go on a date with him. And then he started driving, and I got my stuff situated. And then he brought up the phone number. He brought it up casually. He said, "What was that phone number that you gave me?" And I said, "Oh, the phone number, that was the phone number to my work." And he just freaked out. He just freaked out, and he just started screaming, and he pulled me by my hair, and he screamed at me and called me names and said, "No, that wasn't the number. That wasn't the number. Some old lady answered that." And my whole world just turned upside down. I was in such shock. He grabbed me by the hair and he shoved my head into the dashboard. And I remember thinking that it was a joke, and I couldn't process it. I couldn't imagine how this was a joke. I had never been treated this violently before ever in my life by a stranger. And then a gun came out. When I saw the gun, I went into shock. Then twine came out, and my hands were pulled behind my back, and my hands were tied with twine. It all happened so fast. I just kept saying, is this a joke? Is this a joke? It wasn't a joke. He started driving. I knew where he was driving. I started telling him, I'll do anything. I'll rob a bank with you. I will do whatever you want. I was using any skill I've ever learned in life to try to get out of this man's possession, but he wasn't listening. He would just stare out the window and he would yell, shut up. And I felt a sense of evilness. I knew that he was evil, but I didn't know what I was in for. And he just kept driving. I kept complaining. I kept pleading. At one point, he made a turn. I know where he was going. I know my directions very well. That's how I found this spot today. At one point, he unzipped his pants and he told me to perform oral sex on him. And I couldn't because he had erectile dysfunction, at least at the time. And when I said I couldn't, I got scared. And he hit me in the head. I sat up. I saw where we were going. He had put sunglasses on me. He'd put a hat on me. Then he put my seat all the way back. Then he just started driving. And my thoughts as he was driving was, please don't turn where I think you're going to turn. Because that means we're going into the middle of nowhere. Out by the windmills, out where there's nothing. And he turned. And then he turned again. And I could only see up in the sky out through the window because I was laying back in the seat with sunglasses on. My hands were twined behind my back. I had sunglasses on and a hat on, and all I could see is telephone poles. And each time we passed a telephone pole, I lost more and more and more hope. And the whole time he never answered me. He just said, shut up. And the next thing he did was when we passed about 20 telephone poles, he pulled in here. He pulled around and into here, into this very spot. It was about this light. It was like this light outside because it was a little after 6 in the morning. I was still in shock. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was sitting in the passenger seat of the car. But at this point, I knew I was going to die. But I didn't know what he was going to do to me before he killed me, and that scared me most of all. And he climbed into my seat. I was wearing a long sweatshirt, and I was wearing jean shorts, and he just got the knife. Of course, he punched me and stuff a little. Some things I don't add in a lot because they're not that major, but everything is major. He punched me and he started cutting my shorts, and he couldn't get them off, so he just ripped them off. He ripped my underwear off and cut them off. It was all going so fast. I just saw a knife. I stopped talking. And then he tried to cut off my sweatshirt. And he thought that's going to take too long. And I thought I was going to be raped. And to be honest with you, I didn't care. Rape is not the worst thing that could happen to you. I didn't care. He cut my bra off because he couldn't get my sweatshirt off. He was so forceful the whole time, and he knew what he was doing, and he was so methodical and so fast and so precise, and he knew. It was just, to me, in my mind, it was like whoosh, whoosh, things were being pulled, everything was being done. I didn't know what was going to happen next. It was the perfect scenario for him. The only thing that I could think of the whole time was, I am in hell. I was 19. And I was just exposed to hell. So then, he was sitting on my side. And I was in the chair. I was in the passenger seat like this. And he was straddling me, sitting on me. He tried to have sex with me, but he couldn't. Because he has erectile dysfunction. And I'm sorry that I keep saying that, but he does, and that makes him really angry. And that kind of makes me happy to say, because I know I'm making him angry. But I don't want to do something like that, but I know that is really the problem. Sorry. But I noticed by now that there was something wrong, and I had not even been with anybody yet. I had not even been with anybody, but I knew that there was something wrong, and if my life depended on having sex with this guy, that there was a problem, that it was not going to happen because something was wrong with him. But I tried, and I told him that it was okay, and I told him that he could rape me, and I told him that he could do whatever he wanted to do to me. I just wanted to live. That's all. He didn't respond. Then he just started staring at me. And when I looked at his eyes, they were just black. And I remember thinking that I was staring into the eyes of the devil. And then he told me to tell him that I loved him. I'd never even told my own parents that I loved them, because they had never raised me like that. Well, of course, in bad situations, like if somebody died or something, they would say, you know we love you, but I didn't know how to say. I had never said that to anybody, so I tried to take a minute because I wanted it to seem so real, because I had never said it or ever even practiced saying those words. So I said it. I just said it, just because that's what he wanted to hear. So I said it, and it didn't sound good. And he grabbed my underwear, and he shoved them in my mouth, and he kept shoving them in my mouth until they went into my throat, and then I started gagging on them. And I felt like I was drowning. Still, my hands are tied behind my back. I have no way to defend myself. I'm wiggling my legs. He's sitting on them. He's gagging me with my own underwear. And then he lodges them into my throat. Then he ties the bra around my mouth like this to hold him in my throat. I thought I was going to die right then from gagging on my own vomit. I know it's much worse than the shows depict, but I warned you guys. Sorry. I started to get a reflex that made the underwear just lodge from my throat. So then I was able to make some noise, And I tried to say, I love you. And he removed everything after a moment. And let me tell you, every second seemed like an eternity. It seemed so long and so drawn out. He took everything off my face, the bra and the underwear. He told me to tell him I love him again. And I mustered up everything from anything I ever knew, and it came from a real place. I had to make it sound like I loved this guy. It never even ran through my mind, why is this evil person asking me to tell him that I love him? That never ran through my mind. If he told me to do cartwheels through the desert one-handed, I would have done it. But this was something I didn't know how to do, but I was going to try. So I tried to say it again. And the look on his face looked as if he was trying to receive it as something real. I didn't think of that till after, because I didn't really care then, because I really didn't like him. This is so weird. Then he just started strangling me. He got really mad and he just started strangling me. And that was really, really, really weird. Let me tell you, that was really weird because he was sitting on my legs still. Like a person sits on somebody on a swing, like towards them like this. He was sitting on my legs. I couldn't move my legs. My hands were still behind my back. And now he was strangling me, and all I could do is look into his evil eyes. And if I could have killed my own self with thoughts, I would have done it right then. And I actually wondered at that moment why God didn't give us that power. But then he did it more. He just kept strangling me, and I just remember feeling like I was gagging, but I couldn't breathe in or out. And I wasn't in pain. Let me tell you that. I wasn't in pain. But I couldn't breathe in or out. And all I could see was his eyes. And then I start having these thoughts that I think maybe everybody has before they die. And all I felt was love. All I felt was a feeling of love. And I was still conscious. And I closed my eyes because I didn't want to die seeing him. And then, with all my heart and soul, I thought, life is so short. What is this? I'm dying today while my friends are sleeping, while my parents are sleeping, while the lady at work is helping the children. I'm in the middle of this desert, being murdered. And then I thought to myself, please, I don't know if this exists, but if there's a way for me to convey all the love that I have in my heart and that I have ever had in my heart to all the people that I have ever loved, please let it just shoot out of my body and through the universe. And to everybody, to my parents who were sometimes mean, I didn't care. They had problems of their own. To my friend that couldn't give me a ride, to anybody, any petty little situation that I had ever been upset about, I didn't care. The last thing I wanted to do with my physical being was just spread all the love in my heart to everybody and let them have the feeling that I love them and that I was okay. And I think that's what everybody does. And then I just saw white. I just saw white. I didn't see this anymore. I didn't see the desert. I didn't see his face. I didn't have recollection of anything, of nothing. And I heard something. It was like music, and the closest thing that I could describe to it is that song, Amazing Grace. But not even like that, but different. But it's confusing. I can't explain it, but I was happy. I didn't know what happened to me. And there was something amazing. And like I said, I'm not going to preach. This to me seemed heavenly. You may think I passed out. I think I died. The shows never let me say that, but I think I died. I remember being lifted out of the car, and I was happy. My only thoughts were that of like a child, and like I was seeing something amazing, and like I was going somewhere amazing. There was nothing else on my mind. And then I don't know how much time passed, but then I saw his eyes again, close up, and then far away, close up, and then far away, and then close up. And I started trying to comprehend what was going on and where I was, because I didn't know what was happening. And then suddenly I felt my body again. Kind of like when you're falling asleep in a chair and then you wake up. It just rushed to me, and I felt it like that again. And then I realized why I'd see him close up and far off. And that was because he was banging my head, pounding my chest. I don't know if he resuscitated me or not. This is the only part of the story that I don't know, because I wasn't there. I wasn't there. Hi. I'm back. I lost my train of thought. So, I was back. He brought me back to it. He didn't want me to die that fast. He wanted to torture me some more. And then he just started sucking on my neck. And I just remember thinking that I wanted to die. I did. Some shows didn't want me to say this, but I did. I wanted to die. I didn't want to be tortured anymore. And I just laid there with my arms still twined behind my back as he sucked on my neck, and I felt his slobber just running down between my breasts. And I just thought, hurry up and kill me. And then he sat up. And when he sat up, he opened his mouth for just a second. And I saw blood and skin and his teeth and blood coming down his mouth. And I really didn't care at the moment, but it did make me aware that he had just tried to bite a chunk out of my neck, and that was not slobber, that was blood. And I looked down, and I had blood running down my sweatshirt. He pulls me out of the car. To be honest with you, I'm not excited, but I am. I'm thinking it's going to be the end. I want to die by now because it's not fun to be tortured. Anybody that's ever been tortured will tell you that. So he pulls me out of the car right here. And I remember looking around and seeing this trash and thinking this is where he's gonna kill me. I would look up. All I would see is this one bird, this one black bird. I could hear the cars. It was about this light out. He went around and he opened the trunk and he got out a bag of knives, and I saw blades just sticking out. Not blades, sorry. I saw handles sticking out and blades. I don't know what I saw. I was out of my mind, but it was a bag full of knives, and it was a paper bag, like a paper shopping bag with knives in it. And his car was here, and he went around and he put it in the back seat of his car. And when I saw that, I just thought, hell no. I might be dying today, but I don't want to be cut up with knives. So I just started running when I saw the knives. And when I was running, I had a sweatshirt on that went to like here. My hands were still twined behind my back. There was no way that was coming off. And I'm so far from civilization. I knew he would do one of two things. He would either catch me or he would shoot me. So I just ran with my eyes squinted because I thought he was going to shoot me. And my worst fear was just being left out here in this desert with nobody to find me. Then I feel something to the back of my head, and I couldn't think straight. So I didn't know if I was shot or what. All I knew is I fell back and I hit my head on the ground. But then I started moving. And then I remember looking on the sides of me and seeing the gravel going by me, and I realized he was pulling me through the desert by my hair. And he pulled me through cactus, through rocks. I couldn't feel any of it. Then he stood me up. He told me to perform oral sex on him, and I told him to F off because I wanted to die. Because you know what? They like when you plead for your life. And I wasn't going to plead for my life anymore. But not because I didn't want to live, but I didn't want to be tortured anymore. I hope you understand that. I would have rather died than have been tortured more and then killed, which I knew was going to happen. And so I told him no. And I called him a coward. And I told him to kill me. Did I want him to kill me? I did. You may think I'm crazy, and I kind of am from what I went through. But I was definitely insane at that moment. I told him to kill me. So he got his gun, and he shoved it in my mouth. And he pushed it. I didn't know a lot about guns then. But it made a noise, and all I did was squinted my eyes, and I imagined the back of my head coming off. Then I reaffirmed myself that that would be okay because it would be really fast. But he didn't do it. He just toyed with me, and then he opened the trunk, and then he threw me in the trunk, and then the worst part was he kept giving me hope. Like, I'm going to die 1 minute and then I might live the next. Now, what is he doing? He's putting me in the trunk. He put me in the trunk. My hands were still tied together. He threw me in the trunk. He slammed the trunk. He got in the car. When I fell into the trunk, I saw a bird right up there. That was the last thing I saw. It was a bird, and it just looked evil. Everything looked evil to me. The whole world was evil. I didn't know if this had been the whole world all along or if it just happened. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. But I had no time. I had no time to waste. And so I thought of everything I've ever learned in my life. When you're in a situation like this, you would be surprised if the things that come into your brain that you have learned, they will just pour out of all of these places that you thought were closed off. You remember stuff from kindergarten, from first grade, from maybe when you were even born. I don't know. If it's in your brain, it will come up when it needs to come up. And that is when you need to survive. But I thought, I have nothing. My hands are behind my back. I have never learned anything. I am locked in a trunk. This guy's going to kill me. And the scariest thought was when this trunk opens, I'm dead. And then I remembered something that my grandma told me. My grandma Beulah told me that if I'm ever in trouble, to pray. She told me that if I ever need God, and again, I'm not preaching, this is what I did. This is what happened in the trunk. This is what I did. I prayed with my hands behind my back. And I was mad. I was not a happy prayer. I was yelling. And I said, God, if there's a God, please. My grandma said that you were real. I believed you have always been my friend all alone and with me because nothing like this has ever happened this far. And if you are there, please, let me just break free from these binds and escape out of this trunk. Things I said to God were something that I didn't think could happen, but I didn't know. And so it was like I was calling him, saying, if you are there, show me. I was hyperventilating when I did all of this. But I kind of knew that there was something there because when he strangled me, I went somewhere and I wanted to go back there. And I prayed that too. I said, if I don't get out, please let me just die. Just let me just die right now. Please kill me. And then I just got really calm. I got really, 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 really calm. And then I just heard popping. The twine was popping off of my wrist, behind my back. It was just popping off. And I just reached my arms out and it was off. But I didn't take that as God help me yet because I was so afraid still. Because then my next thought was, okay, how am I going to get out of this trunk? I couldn't figure it out. So I got all the twine and I twirled it together and I put it around my neck and I prayed to God, please God, let me strangle myself with the twine. And that happened for like a second and I couldn't do it, and my body wouldn't allow me to do it because I'd just been strangled for so long. There was no possible way. He got tired trying to strangle me to death. I don't think it's possible to strangle yourself to death. I got calm again. And I just started talking. I just started talking to God and I said, please, just let me see a way out. I told him that I would go to church. I apologized for anything bad I've ever done in my life. I told him that I would tell the story of him helping me. And I got really calm. And then the whole trunk just lit up. It was like neon. This was in 1992. There was no trunk release back then. But I could see everything. But I could see everything because I grew up with no electricity. And so I had trained myself to look at stuff in the daylight and see it at night. So the whole trunk lit up. And it was like I created that trunk. I was a different person. I thought to myself, where would you put the key in? You'd put the key in the middle. Okay, so here's the middle. So I need to get to that middle. There's something on this side that I could turn that's going to unlock the trunk and I'm going to get out. This guy was not going to kill me. I was a different person. Something came over me. So I felt for that, and I saw it. I saw where to go. I felt where the middle was. I started ripping and tearing that trunk apart. That trunk had some sort of little wooden board with some little carpet on it. And I clawed that and I ripped it apart because I knew when that trunk opened that I was going to be dead. I ripped that trunk apart. I didn't mess with the lights. How they say push out the lights. You don't have time to push out lights. You just need to rip that trunk apart because you have the capability to do it. Because you have adrenaline. I ripped it apart. I put my hands in there. There were these circular weird shaped things. I don't know. I'll do a video from a trunk and show you how to do it. You put your hands in there and there's a latch, and I turned the latch and I held the top of the trunk because I didn't want to fly up. But I noticed he was going fast and I wanted him to pull over. So I did let it go up and then I pulled it back down, but I didn't shut it. He pulled over really fast. He jumped out. He came back there. He tried to put the gun in. He saw. He shut it. He got back in the car. He tried to take off because now we're on Indian Avenue here in Desert Hot Springs, and it's about 7 something in the morning. We were out in the desert here for the whole incident. Took about 2 hours. He was bringing me to another place to kill me. He was so afraid that people might have seen that he was pulled over and the whole trunk open and all of that, that he tried to take off. And when he tried to take off, he got stuck in the soft sand. And then I timed it out. He would get stuck, he'd try to go, and then when he wasn't trying to get out of the soft sand, he would turn and yell at me. And when you have when your senses aren't working, my sight, I couldn't see anything. I could hear better. I could tell when he was talking and turned away, and I could tell when he was talking and turned towards me. So I timed it and I waited till he was turned away. When he was yelling he would shoot the back seat out and kill me. I didn't care. I was not scared of that. So I timed it, and when I knew that he was focusing on getting out of the soft sand, I put my hands back in there and I unlatched the truck and I jumped out and I ran. It's almost 8 o'clock in the morning and I'm running down a road that has hardly any traffic on it. And a car's coming up along the side of me and I just grab its side mirror. It just starts going faster, and the woman in the passenger seat is hitting her husband saying, "Go, go," and she's looking back and I'm screaming no, and I'm literally running as fast as that car can go because I'm holding on to their side mirror, and I'm literally trying to get just a second so I can push up and try to jump into that window, into that car with them. But they take off and I almost lose my footing, but I don't. And then I think, don't look back. Don't ever look back. But I look back. And I saw why she made him go faster. And it was because he was chasing me down the middle of the road with a machete. So I just ran. A car was coming towards me. It was a truck. I was spent. It could have run me over. But instead, it was 2 Marines, and they stopped and they put me in the car, and I told them what happened. They had a pair of jeans that fit me perfectly. They started to try to chase him. I told them everything, that he had guns and weapons and all of that. And they said, no, this is for the cops. So they brought me to Morongo Valley, a town that's about 20 minutes away from here. Brought me into the gas station. The police were called. I went to the police station and nobody believed me. Nobody believed me. Not even my own parents. Because I was a storyteller. I wouldn't lie and tell stories. But I didn't have TV and I had a wild imagination. So I would tell amazing fun stories. I would never tell horror stories, but my mom told the police that I was a storyteller. So the police interrogated me. I don't know how long it was. I just remember being so thirsty and hungry and so exhausted and feeling like I was living in hell. and they asked me if a boyfriend had done this to me. They tried to bring me here to where it happened. I have not been back here until today, 24 years later. And I knew exactly where it was. But when they were trying to help me find this place, they wouldn't turn where I told them to turn. They brought me to other places and had me get out of the car and asked me if I was sure it didn't happen there. Yeah, I was sure. They didn't believe me. There was no evidence. They went to where he got stuck in the sand, and a bulldozer was there, bulldozing the sand. So there were no tire marks. There was a bite on my neck. They measured the teeth marks on my neck. That's all they had to go by. And they still said, did you get in a dispute with a boyfriend? No! I told him no. I told him he was a killer. I told him he's done this before. He was going to kill me. They didn't believe me. So you know what happened to me? All I had was that bite mark, and it healed. And all I had was the marks from the twine on my arms. And the only way I could talk to anybody about my story is if they asked what happened to my arms. So I began cutting my arms. And it would release my pain. And then, when a friend found out I was cutting my arms, I woke up strapped to a table in a mental hospital. The shows that I was on, I said that I went in the mental hospitals because I felt safe there, and that is true. I felt safe there because I knew he couldn't get in there. But to be honest with you, I was insane. I was temporarily insane. I was crazy. The first time I saw a psychiatrist in the mental hospital, he labeled me so many different things. Schizophrenic, bipolar, multiple personalities. There was even a time I admitted that I made it all up because I thought that I did. Because when you have 5 grown men yelling at you and telling you about women chopped up, put in buckets, it breaks you down and you don't know, especially after you just experienced something horrific. I never knew what day it was. I was on so many different medications, and that's where I lived. Eventually, I would get out of the mental hospitals, and he was caught. He was caught 5 years later. But for those 5 years, I thought I was nuts. And so did all of my family. And there's more to the story, but there is just not enough time right here. But please don't cut out until this video ends, because I made this story to be a complete story from beginning to end. So please don't shut this video off until it ends, and you'll hear his confession of what he did to me at the end. My heart goes out to all the girls that he did this to. I think about them every day, and they give me the courage and the strength to go on. And I will get them justice. Keep watching.
Convicted serial killer Andrew Urdiales was caught in 1997. That's 19 years ago. He was convicted of the murders in Illinois, and he was given the death penalty 2 times. However, the state of Illinois banned the death penalty in 2011, reducing the sentences of all men on death row to life without the possibility of parole. He was then extradited to the Orange County Jail in California in 2011. Opening statements should begin by November of this year. Please continue to follow this case and pray for the families of the victims. And keep an eye out for my book, which is scheduled to be released in 2017.
Let's talk about the third time.
I think that would be Jennifer.
Jennifer's her name?
Mm-hmm. And waiting for the bus. And I put on one after the other right.
From the information he gets from her on the ride up there, he knows that she's going to house sit from a certain time till 6 in the morning. So at 6 in the morning, he's waiting for her as she comes out of the house.
I know she said she was getting up like around 6, so I got in my car by that time, she already left the house and she was already walking down the street.
She gets in the car with him, and he immediately attacks her.
I was actually listening to her, I felt, and I just reached over and I grabbed her by the hair, and then she got scared, and I produced the gun. I told her to turn around, I tied her hands behind her back. I just had my hands on her throat, and I just kept choking, and she kept kicking, and, you know, her saliva was coming out of her mouth, and her face was turning blue and then red.
He had her with very little clothes on, tied up in the trunk of his car, and she is able to pop the trunk from the inside, and from there she's able to get out and escape and run away. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind she would have been the next victim of